as always, is pretty straightforward. We take these complex, sometimes really dense sources, articles on cybernetics, psychology reports, deep media theory, and we boil them down.
Distill them into the key insights, the things you really need to grasp.
Exactly. And today, we're jumping into a really intense conflict happening right now across the creative world.
Yeah, it's this huge structural clash, you could say.
Between the established players, think A-list actors, top YouTubers, the big names, and this absolute tidal wave of AI-powered content. Fast, diverse, just everywhere.
It's a critical conversation because, honestly, this isn't just about a new tool or an industry shift. It feels more like a cybernetic war, really.
Yeah.
Fought over who controls attention, who controls the narrative.
And that established guard, the people whose whole identity, their financial security, is tied up in being useful in the old way. Well, they're making a lot of noise.
A huge amount of noise because, frankly, they seem terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified by the speed, the sheer volume of what AI enables.
And that fear, that noise, that's actually the core idea you, our listener, brought to the table for this dive. You pointed out how these incumbents feel like they're being, quote, deeply forced off stage.
Yeah, and that the pushback from the big names, the Mr. Beasts or the top actors, is getting incredibly loud because of it.
But you also made this really crucial distinction, a philosophical point almost, that changes how we look at this whole thing.
Which was?
That the AI itself isn't the danger, it's just tech. You framed it, I thought, brilliantly as AI is the new gun. The target isn't the machine. The target is the mind.
Right. It's people pulling the trigger. Whether it's aimed at something constructive or destructive, that comes down to human intention.
Precisely. So that framing AI as this high-speed weapon targeting our consensus reality, that's our jumping off point today. We're not really here to debate aesthetics, like is AI art good or bad?
No, not at all. We're looking at the structure of control. How does power operate in this new landscape?
So for this deep dive, we're going to use three main lenses. First, cybernetics and media ecology, basically. Why the old system is structurally failing.
Okay.
Second, psychology. Why do established creators call the new stuff slop? What's the deep existential fear AI triggers?
Got it. The human reaction.
And finally, strategy. How can you, the listener, navigate this chaos without getting totally overwhelmed or, consumed by it?
And it's fascinating because the resistance, it's not just about money, as it seems much deeper. It's about their identity, their sense of value, potentially just dissolving.
Yeah, it feels existential for them.
So to really get why they're so afraid, we need to start with why, structurally speaking, the old guard probably can't win this fight using their old rules.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's look at the structure of control itself, starting with this idea of complexity or variety. Right? So when we throw around the term cybernetics, we're basically talking about the science of control and communication, especially in complex systems.
Like an ecosystem or an economy or, well, the media landscape.
Exactly. And in this AI conflict, the really critical concept is variety, which isn't just about having different kinds of things.
No, technically it's the number of possible states a system can be in, how many different configurations or outputs are possible.
And this whole conflict, it seems like a clash between two fundamentally different systems of variety, a structural mismatch.
Absolutely. On one side, you've got the incumbents, the A-listers, the big studios, the established creators. They are masters, really, of a low-variety system.
Their whole business model is built on scarcity, isn't it?
Completely. Think about a big Hollywood movie. It takes years, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, huge teams, carefully managed stars.
Everything is controlled, linear, slow. The output is limited.
And that scarcity, that control, is precisely where the value comes from in their model. It's valuable because it's rare, human-paced, easy for the gatekeepers to manage and monetize. Low variety, high control.
Okay, so they're experts at squeezing value from a very limited set of possibilities.
Right. Now contrast that with the insurgents, the people using AI as a force multiplier. You call them the 100 people like you. This is the explosion of high variety.
And you mentioned this specific capability, someone being able to pump out, quote, 300 videos in under months of good quality shit. That's not hypothetical, that's happening.
And that's the practical outcome of what we might call the Hydra strategy.
Like the mythical beast.
Exactly. Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. Try to shut down one AI creator using the old rules, and suddenly there are 100 more.
generating exponentially more content that's often technically good enough, and it iterates incredibly fast based on what works.
Yeah, the feedback loop is almost instantaneous. And that scale, that speed, it's structurally impossible for the old linear scarcity-based playbook to even compete with, let alone control.
That structural incompatibility feels key. The high-variety system just generates possibilities, generates outputs so fast that the low-variety system, the scarcity model, can't regulate it. Can't even properly understand it sometimes.
Which brings us straight to Ashby's law.
Ah, yes. Ashby's law of requisite variety. Remind us.
It's a fundamental principle of control theory. Basically, to effectively manage or control a system, your control mechanism, you, the manager, must have at least as much variety, as many possible responses, as the system you're trying to control.
So if the system you're trying to manage, AI content creation, is exploding with variety,
And your control system, the traditional industry structure, is low variety, built on...
really cannot control it. You lack the requisite variety.
Precisely. They're trying to apply rules designed for scarcity to regulate abundance. It just doesn't compute structurally.
But okay, if the whole system is under pressure, why focus specifically on the A-listers and the top creators? Why are they the ones being the loudest, the ones feeling forced off stage, as you put it?
Well, I think it's because their entire psychology, their way of thinking, is rooted in an older media ecosystem. This isn't just about variety. It's a clash between what media theorists call fragmentation and fusion.
Okay, break that down. Fragmentation.
Think print culture. Think traditional film and TV. Linear. Visual. It encourages dividing things up. Time gets fragmented into work time, leisure time. Tasks get fragmented into specialties.
Like the expert who spends months on one niche article, or the actor perfecting one role for a year.
Exactly. The specialist mind. Their value is built on that narrow, deep, controlled, fragmented output. It takes time. It's scarce.
And that scarcity is built into the expectation. You wait for the specialist's insight, you wait for the movie star's performance. That waiting, that control, gives it value and lets the creator feel unique.
Perfectly put. Now contrast that with fusion. This is what electric media, the internet, and now supercharged by AI, demands.
Fusion sounds all-encompassing.
It is. It requires total involvement using all your faculties at once. It blurs the lines. Work and leisure bleed together. Art and commerce merge. Production and consumption become a continuous loop.
AI speed forces this, doesn't it? It's not neat little boxes anymore.
It's a continuous flow, a constant modulation. And that transition from fragmentation to fusion is terrifying for the specialist mind. It's an existential threat.
Because if your entire self-worth, your identity, is built on being the best at one narrow, fragmented thing.
And suddenly a system pops up that values rapid, holistic, fusion-based output.
Your specialty isn't just less valuable, it feels invalidated, obsolete even.
Right. They see this high-speed, blurry, high-variety output as chaos. But it's only chaos if your mind needs those neat, separate boxes to feel secure and useful.
The technology itself is almost declaring that old way of thinking obsolete.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
The modern creative landscape seems to demand continuous adaptation, managing complexity, thinking holistically. It requires playing multiple roles, not just having one fragmented job. And that's the opposite of the specialist mindset they perfected. The fear isn't just losing income, it's losing the very language they use to define their purpose.
Okay, so the root problem is structural. The old system just can't cope with the variety. But the reaction we see is psychological. Which brings us to that term, slop. Why that word? It's so dismissive.
I think labeling AI content slop is basically an ego defense. It's not really a neutral aesthetic judgment, is it? It feels more like a last stand.
A last stand of what?
Of the sovereign ego, maybe. The individual specialized identity trying desperately not to dissolve into this continuous liquid flow of information and content.
So by calling it slop, they're trying to impose those old fixed categories, like this is good art, that is bad slop.
Exactly, trying to force clear boundaries onto a system that inherently blurs all boundaries. Because if it's just slop, then it doesn't really challenge their value, does it?
No, it lets them hold on to that feeling of being special, superior, even if their actual market relevance is shrinking.
Precisely. But that defense mechanism starts to crumble when it hits the reality of statistical redundancy.
Explain that. How does AI make creators?
By essentially strip mining all prior human creative output. Every movie script, every novel, every painting, every song. It digests it all.
So every new thing it creates
is based on patterns derived from everything that came before, which means mathematically, the originality quotient for any new creation, AI or human, gets driven closer and closer to statistical zero.
Wow. Okay. That's the specific fear then, isn't it? For the creator whose whole identity is built on their unique voice, their inimitable style.
If a machine can generate endless variations of your unique style in seconds, then your special contribution starts to look, well, statistically redundant. Just another data point in a massive calculation.
Your specialness evaporates.
The pillar of scarcity collapses, the perceived value collapses, and for many, their sense of self-worth collapses right along with it. If a machine can replicate your most prized skill effortlessly, who are you? That's a profound trauma, and trauma generates noise.
And this specific fear, this anxiety about being declared useless, statistically irrelevant, it feels connected to a broader trend we're seeing, doesn't it? This rise in nihilism, particularly among young people.
Oh, absolutely. There are studies showing that the feeling of life being useless has, doubled among high school senior boys just since around 2012. That's not random.
What's causing it?
Well, it seems to stem partly from a societal failure. We're still often rewarding narrow specialization, fragmented skills, but the world increasingly demands holistic, adaptive thinking. The pathways for young people to feel genuinely integrated and recognized feel broken or missing.
So if the conventional ways to feel valuable are blocked, or if the system suddenly declares your hard-won specialty useless,
Might feel the only way to get the system to even notice them, to register their existence, is to generate a signal of extremely high amplitude.
meaning
Something disruptive, what we might term pathological variety amplification. A chaotic act may be online, maybe in the real world. Something unpredictable and destabilizing.
a desperate attempt to force recognition when contribution fails.
It can be seen that way. If I can't be special by creating value in the approved way, maybe I can be special by disrupting the system that devalued me. It's a dangerous path, born from that feeling of redundancy.
And thinking about disruption, if this whole conflict throws up a new kind of leader figure, someone who rallies those feeling displaced or useless, there's a potential dark side to that, isn't there?
Definitely. A leader emerging from this kind of high-variety, chaotic environment would likely need a high internal variety themselves. Creative, maybe passionate about justice, good at processing chaos, perhaps some traits associated with ADHD even.
Well, what's the risk?
The risk is they might lean on what psychologists call dark triad traits. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, maybe psychopathy. Using those for short-term tactical wins.
Because those traits can be effective in grabbing attention, in manipulating narratives.
They can be in the short term. They're good at sowing discord, leveraging emotions, cutting through the noise. They excel at the fight for attention, but they are ultimately maladaptive. Narcissism, for instance, is often described as a kind of compensatory facade for deep insecurity. Relying on these traits burns bridges.
How so?
It erodes trust. These strategies are inherently transactional, manipulative. You might win the immediate battle for eyeballs, but you lose the long-term war for genuine loyalty and cohesion. Any movement built on that foundation tends to sabotage itself through internal friction and distrust. It can't sustain itself against entrenched power.
Which brings us right back to your core idea, the listener's premise, really. AI is a gun, and the target is the mind. This feels like the intersection of the structural failure and the psychological warfare.
Exactly. If the old guard can't control the means of production through scarcity anymore, the focus shifts to controlling the outcome, controlling consensus reality itself.
We're moving beyond just making content to actually manufacturing belief.
Yes. This seems like the next phase of the algorithmic war. And the key weapon here is something called hyperstition.
Right, you mentioned that. Define hyperstition for us again, clearly. What is it?
Hyperstition is essentially creating a fiction, an idea, a story, a prediction that starts to become real because people believe in it and act on it. It gains causal power through collective buy-in.
A self-fulfilling prophecy, but engineered.
Kind of, yeah. Think about, say, a rumor about a stock surge. It starts online, maybe artificially amplified. Enough people believe it, they buy the stock, and suddenly the price does surge. The initial fiction created the reality.
And AI is the ultimate tool for this because
speed and scale. AI can generate and disseminate these narratives, these hyperstitions, incredibly quickly, personalized to target specific psychological vulnerabilities, making them far more potent.
So it's not just about creating the story, it's about making it stick and spread faster than truth. And the data on how easily this can happen is, well, it's alarming.
It really is. Take emotional amplification. Studies consistently show that narratives wrapped in high emotional valence spread significantly faster. We're talking maybe a 40% boost in spread rate.
Why? What's happening?
Emotion tends to bypass our critical thinking. It plebs directly into deeper, maybe more primitive parts of our. An emotionally charged story feels more true.
And AI can tailor those emotional triggers.
Infinitely, generating countless variations of the same core message, each tweaked to resonate with different audiences, maximizing that emotional hook and psychological penetration.
And the speed of manufacturing consensus around these false narratives is also frighteningly fast.
Disturbingly so. There are simulation models showing that even if you start with individual false memories, things people misremember, you only need about 3 rounds of group discussion for around 64% of those false memories to become collectively shared.
3 rounds, that could be like a few hours on a fast-moving forum or one viral social media cycle.
Exactly. A few intense threads, a coordinated campaign, a rapid sequence of news hits reinforcing the same false premise. It creates this cascade effect where the manufactured reality quickly becomes the accepted group reality.
And AI doesn't just create the initial lie, it fuels the discussion.
It can provide the evidence, the arguments, the personalized feedback loops needed to overwhelm critical thinking and push the group towards the desired consensus. It exploits the inherent conflicts in how our brains process language and social proof.
And here's the really insidious part. Building the false reality also involves actively erasing the truth. It's deliberate, collective forgetting.
Yes, there's a mechanism for that too. It's sometimes called socially shared retrieval-induced forgetting.
Okay. How does that work in simple terms?
If you get a group intensely focused on discussing the false details, the hyperstitional narrative, they're constantly retrieving those details from memory.
And crucially, they are not retrieving the related, conflicting, true details.
Exactly. By controlling the focus of the conversation, you systematically suppress the retrieval of the truth from the collective memory pool.
Yeah.
It just fades. It stops being talked about, stops being remembered, effectively vanishes from the group's accessible reality.
That is genuinely chilling. It means the ultimate goal of these systems, whether it's the old guard trying to cling to power or some new digital authoritarian force, isn't just watching us.
No, the goal seems to be variety attenuation.
Attenuation meaning reduction, simplification.
Yes, deliberately simplifying the incredibly complex spectrum of human thought, behavior, and belief into a few manageable, low-variety categories. Acceptable narratives, predictable opinions, standardized consumer choices, things the central controller can easily process and manage.
How did they achieve that reduction?
One way is by bombarding us with external chaos. Constant crisis, information overload, economic uncertainty, whether it's algorithmically generated or just the state of the world. This relentless external pressure reduces our internal requisite variety.
Our own ability to handle complexity shrinks.
Precisely. Our capacity to hold nuanced perspectives, to entertain contradictory ideas, to think deeply, it gets worn down. We feel overwhelmed.
And when we're overwhelmed, we seek simplicity.
Exactly. Think of your brain like a complex ecosystem, resilient, adaptable, high variety. Variety attenuation turns it into a monoculture farm. Easy for the farmer, the controller to manage, but incredibly fragile. You become isolated, exhausted by complexity, and much more vulnerable to latching onto a simple, narrow, enforced narrative.
So the AI gun isn't just firing narratives, it's aiming to degrade our ability to even process complexity.
That seems to be the deeper strategic aim. Control the capacity to think complexly, and you control the population's ability to adapt or resist.
Okay, so that's the landscape. Structural collapse, deep psychological fear, weaponized narratives aimed at our minds. It's a lot. For any creator trying to navigate this, especially someone who maybe even thrives on a bit of chaos, we need strategies, psychological survival strategies.
Right. And this brings us back to that idea of the ADHD brain, or the chaos-seeking mind. It's often highly adapted to perform well in a crisis. Damage control specialists, not damage prevention.
When everything's on fire, they suddenly focus, right? That pressure feels good, validating even.
It can. But we talked about the danger of relying on that adaptation long term. Why is constantly seeking chaos actually harmful for consistency?
Remind us.
Because it actively weakens or even disables the brain's crucial habit circuitry. We're talking specifically about the basal ganglia.
The part that makes things automatic.
Yes. It takes conscious effort and turns it into unconscious routine. Brushing your teeth, driving a car, sticking to a writing schedule, it's the basal ganglia of building habits. It's the foundation of long-term self-mastery and consistency.
But if you always need a crisis, an external pressure cooker to get you going.
You stop using that habit circuitry. You're essentially outsourcing your motivation to external emergencies instead of building internal discipline. The need for high-amplitude drama becomes a trap, preventing you from developing the stability needed in this high-variety world.
So breaking that cycle, finding consistency when everything outside is volatile, it means shifting focus, not on fixing some fundamental trait like laziness.
No, forget fixed traits. Performance, especially creative performance, is overwhelmingly determined by your temporary variable state, your neurophysiology at any given moment.
So it's not I'm undisciplined, it's my state wasn't optimized for discipline today.
Exactly. We all have those moments of brilliance, right? Where
Yeah.
everything flows, focus is effortless, the ideas just come and then crash. The inconsistency isn't usually about lack of potential. It's about not controlling the internal environment that allows that potential to emerge reliably.
And you mentioned these moments of true potential depend on maybe 7 or 8 key factors aligning. What kind of factors are we talking about? Things we can actually control.
Absolutely controllable things. We're talking about concrete, measurable stuff, accumulated sleep debt, hydration levels, blood sugar stability, which is massively influenced by diet, obviously.
You okay?
Also, how well you're processing background emotional stress. Even low-grade physical inflammation can impact cognitive function hugely. Those moments of peak performance, they're just when these internal stars happen to align.
So the takeaway is really practical then. The cost of skipping lunch and letting your blood sugar tank.
Isn't just feeling groggy, it's actively robbing yourself of those moments of peak creative output.
Yeah.
The solution isn't willpower. It's figuring out your personal formula to consistently arrange those internal factors.
Okay, so optimizing the internal state is foundational. Now, for dealing with the external pressures like feeling excommunicated or facing constant setbacks, you mentioned cognitive reframing as a powerful low-effort tool, like a mental doing nothing.
Sort of, yeah. It leverages the analytical part of your brain, which often stays surprisingly clear even when your emotions are going haywire. The core problem is that we tend to fuse objective reality with our emotional story about that reality.
We feel bad not just because of the event, but because of the negative narrative we instantly attach to it.
Exactly. The fusion cripples us. We react to the story, I'm a failure, not the situation.
Right.
The project needs changes.
So the Klishta technique helps break that fusion. Can you give a really simple, practical example of how someone could use it right now?
Super simple. Grab a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, column A, objective reality. Write down only what actually factually happened, like you're reporting it neutrally. Client rejected the proposal, video got negative comments.
No emotion, no judgment.
None. Then column B, the clifta, the sticky emotional association. Write down the story your mind immediately jumped to. This proves I'm not good enough. Everyone hates my work. I'll never succeed.
Just seeing them separated like that.
Can be incredibly powerful. It creates distance. It allows your rational mind to see the objective situation, proposal needs rework, separately from the overwhelming emotional projection, I'm worthless. Your motivation can then respond to the actual problem instead of being paralyzed by the internal fear story.
That makes sense. Separating the problem outside from the story inside. What's another strategy for handling setbacks, especially when failure feels likely in this chaotic environment?
Adopt the mindset of delaying failure. This sounds counterintuitive, I know.
How does it work?
When people sense a project is heading south, which happens a lot with creative risks, the usual reaction is either give up immediately, why bother, or double down in a panic trying to prevent the failure, which creates immense stress because often failure is inevitable on some level.
Right.
Instead, reframe the goal. Don't aim to win or avoid failure at all costs. Aim to do a good job for as long as possible.
Shift the focus from the final outcome to the ongoing process, from not failing to losing less badly or lasting longer.
Exactly. Even if the eventual crash seems likely, just delaying it, doing good work today and tomorrow, buys you time. And time is valuable.
Why? What does that time give you?
It gives your brain, specifically that basal ganglia we talked about, the chance to build small habits of consistency during the process. It reduces the stress hormone flood associated with anticipating failure. And honestly, sometimes delaying failure long enough leads to unexpected turnarounds. You learn something crucial, or the situation changes. Minimizing the stress extends productive effort.
Okay, that's practical. And finally, when dealing with those big structural shifts being forced off stage, seeing your industry change radically, the core mindset needs to shift too, right?
Absolutely critical. You have to operate from a growth mindset.
Growth mindset versus performance mindset.
Right. A performance mindset sees setbacks, critiques, or even being pushed out as a final judgment on your inherent ability or worth. I failed, therefore I am a failure.
Whereas a growth mindset,
Sees challenges and failures as information, as signals. Okay, that didn't work. What can I learn? How do I need to adapt? How can I get better? It focuses on learning, iterating, improving.
which sounds essential in a world that's constantly changing at high speed.
It's not just useful. It's probably the only way to maintain long-term viability. Continuous learning and adaptation aren't optional extras anymore. They're survival requirements. #tag outro.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. It seems the bottom line is this. The big battle over AI in creative fields isn't just about new technology. It's fundamentally a structural failure.
Yeah, the old system, the one built on that idea of fragmentation, of scarcity, of slow, controlled output, it's collapsing. It simply doesn't have the requisite variety, the internal complexity, to handle the sheer speed and abundance of this new, fused, AI-driven environment.
And that structural collapse is triggering intense psychological reactions. The fear, the slop labeling, the existential dread.
And in this new landscape where hyperstition and algorithms can actively target your ability to think clearly and hold complexity, the most important thing to protect might be your own internal capacity.
Your internal requisite variety. Don't let the external chaos dumb you down, basically.
Right. Don't let it overwhelm you to the point where you become isolated, seeking only simple answers and vulnerable to whatever narrow narrative gets pushed the hardest.
Because ultimately, the viability of any system, whether it's a huge industry clinging to old models or just your own creative life trying to find stability, it hinges on balancing today's needs with tomorrow's adaptation.
And if that old model of scarcity, of specialization, of linear value is dissolving, fighting the tide seems futile.
So the final thought, the provocation for you, the listener, is this.
If scarcity is no longer the game, what is the new, high-variety purpose you need to define for yourself to stay viable long-term? And maybe more importantly, what old habits, what internal systems like relying on chaos or those defensive ego stories do you absolutely have to abandon to actually achieve it?
You're holding the gun aimed at the mind, as you said. What reality are you choosing to build?